And thanks again for joining our webinar. As I mentioned, and as is in front of you, the title of today's webinar is in our Public Cloud Visibility series. This is the second in that series, and we're going to be dealing with the topic today, performance and security analytics in Azure. My name's Phil Swainson. I'm the Head of Technical Services here at KedronUK, and I'll be leading the events today. And with us is also Peter Connolly from ExtraHop. He's part of a guest presentation for us today. He's a senior sales engineer with ExtraHop, and he'll be speaking a little later. Just before we get underway, just a couple of housekeeping points before we start. As you will have probably noticed, all participants have been muted and will continue to be so during the session to avoid any background noise. That doesn't mean that we don't want to hear your questions. So if you do have any questions, then please ask them in the webinar control panel, which you should find on your screens. And then either directly during the session or as part of the follow-up after the presentation, we'll answer those questions for you. And then finally, I'd just like to let you know that the session is being recorded, and all of you will be notified via email just as soon as that is available, where you can download that and perhaps share the recording with your colleagues. So with all of that covered, let's get underway with our presentation. So on our agenda today is just a short recap of where we got to with the first part of this webinar series, and then setting the scene for our discussion today. We're doing a brief market overview with regards to what's taking place in this particular area. And then we'll go into our security and performance analytics live demo with the Reveal X product. And then there will be a short question and answer session at the end, as well as indication for you as to where you can get available resources to download, which give further information on this particular subject for those that will be interested in that. So that's our brief agenda over the next 25 minutes or so. So last time, and we continue to talk about this with our customers, is not having any blind spots when it comes to analysis and information, so that you're able to mitigate performance issues and also security issues. And having that no blind spots approach means that you are fully informed as to exactly what's going on in your environment, so as to be able to deal with those particular issues in those two disciplines. Because if you can't see everything, then obviously you can't mitigate those risks. Now, of course, that includes the various flavors of cloud for your business. And that has been a particular issue for some of our customers for a little while now, and why we've had a great deal of interest in this particular subject. Now, we've also particularly asked by our customers about the public cloud and how they can get visibility. Most often that's with regards to the main two, AWS and Azure. As we mentioned, we're going to concentrate mainly on Azure today, but obviously the principles may well carry through into those other providers as well. There we go. So just obviously that means we need to leverage all the different data sources that are available to us. And in our last webinar, when we considered this area, we spoke about how we can leverage that required visibility to give us the data sources that are certainly available to us to get that no blind spots end-to-end visibility. Because when we talk to our customers in general, and we start to talk about this topic of the public cloud, we find that our clients tend to already have a handle on what's available from their cloud providers, what their native tools are, and also what information they may be able to pull already, from the infrastructure monitoring tools, perhaps via APIs into the cloud provider. Beyond that, though, we've met a number of clients who have deployed APM agents on application tiers in the cloud, and in itself, that's an interesting topic and presents some unique challenges depending on the services that they're consuming. However, the big area which generates most interest for our clients tends to be in this area of leveraging wire data, just as they do with their on-premise environment, in a real-time analysis for performance and security, being able to do that in the public cloud area as well is particularly our focus in this session today. Now, in the last webinar, and a recording of that webinar is available and will be linked in the email that you receive at the end of this session, we talked about how we can access that data in an intelligent way using Cloud Lens from Ixia. But today we're going to focus on the point of having got that data, how can we action it? What can we do with the data? And then be able to bring together the on-premise and the in-cloud data sources into one pane so that we can then seamlessly get an end-to-end view of what's taking place. So hopefully that sets the scene about what we're going to see today and what we're going to talk about in more detail. So as I mentioned, we have Peter Connolly online as well. He's a senior systems engineer with ExtraHop, and we'll hand over to Peter now to take us through his presentation with regards to ExtraHop and RevealX.
Thanks for that, Phil. Yeah, as Phil says, my name is Peter Connolly. I'm a senior systems engineer with ExtraHop. I've been with the company for about 4 years, so I've seen a few things happening with regard to industry trends, cloud adoption, private cloud, etc. And I've seen some things coming into the industry that are fairly novel and fairly new. We'll talk about some of them today, but also we'll give you a good overview of what ExtraHop looks like, the kinds of data it gathers, and what it can actually provide to you in your monitoring efforts. So if I could get to the next slide, thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been with ExtraHop for 4 years, and we've seen quite a bit of change over that time, both personally and as a company. We've seen a lot more cloud adoption. We've seen private cloud, hybrid cloud, and more cloud providers come online. And typically, according to the RightScale 2018 State of the Cloud report, we have about 80% of IT budget will be committed to cloud projects of one form or another. That used to be with a lot of private cloud, but that's decreasing, the same, due to some of the new, more novel offerings from people like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc. So we've seen a reduction in private cloud, down from 23% to about 8% in 2016. At the same time, we've seen, and personally I've seen this as well, Microsoft increase their footprint in the enterprise cloud space from 43% up to 58%. And that's due to some of their new service they provide, increasing adoption of service like Active Directory, Azure, Active Directory, etc. So things are constantly changing, and the focus is on getting visibility into not just the private on-premise estate, but also equivalent functionality of seeing into whichever cloud provider you choose to adopt. If we look at some of the things that people need to answer about their environments, there's a challenge to see the visibility within the cloud that people have been getting used to with their on-premise deployments. Taking one example, how do enterprises learn that they might have been breached in the cloud? With on-prem deployments, they have their own tool set, they have tribal knowledge, they have experience. When we move to the cloud environment, what sort of dependencies do we place on ourselves? So still in a lot of cases, we have the cloud provider being relied upon to tell us when something bad has happened. Some organizations are adopting their own security tools, hoping they'll fit into the cloud, into this new model that people are adopting. Or in some cases, we have other third-party credit companies, for example, or completely different monitoring tools in place that people are relying on. So what ExtraHop tries to do is adopt the same model that we have for your on-premise environment and use the exact same metrics to give you the visibility in your cloud environment that you need to understand when things are either performing badly or when you're having some sort of security breach or some sort of problem in that respect. And we do that by providing a lot of information gleaned from what we call network traffic analysis, NTA. And that's capturing all the packets on your network, analyzing the protocols in use, looking at things like the file transfers, the web requests, the DNS requests and responses, the database traffic. How long does a database query take? Who's asking for certain types of data? We work at scale, analyzing this traffic up to 100 gigs per second on-prem, and with up to 4,500 features extracted from that data. So we have a very strong picture of exactly what's happening across your environment. The exact same model is used in the cloud environment. We extract the same level of detail, and we use that to inform decisions using machine learning. Moving on to the next slide. Typically, we provide unprecedented visibility. If you look at our device capturing traffic on the network, we look at every packet, every interaction. So as soon as the device starts transmitting on the network, asking for data, communicating with a server or with a peer, with an IoT device, we see that device, we can understand what it's doing, we auto-classify it, and give you a level of visibility into the kinds of interactions that you might not have had before. You might not get from just looking at log files or looking at NetFlow. We give you insight into what those interactions are actually doing. So we baseline the network over time. We get to understand who talks to who. Typically, what are workstations, what are servers, what are a group of web services sitting behind a load balancer. We automatically analyze this traffic. And as soon as something changes, something new happens, something novel, something that we've never seen before, or something starts to perform slowly, we're able to alert you to that and allow you to get immediate answers. You know, why is that happening? Should I be concerned? What can I do about it? And this leads to an improvement in the time to detect, an improvement in the time to resolve, and a general reduction in the staff time required to actually understand what's happening on your network, understand the baseline of how your network behaves. As I mentioned, we do this at scale and in both on-prem and cloud deployments. We have virtual models as well as physical models to suit the environment that you're deploying into. Functionally identical. They run the same firmware, they just work in different environments. It's seamless. We give you a single pane of glass in that you can look at both cloud and on-prem simultaneously, or you can zoom in to one or the other environment. And we also have integrations with cloud infrastructure, for example, Azure SQL Server or AWS monitoring tools. You can actually export metrics to give you a more detailed view in the environment of exactly what's going on. We're a Microsoft Azure partner, so an Amazon Web Service Partner Network member. And we've been doing this for some time now. I think the initial cloud deployments took place around 4 years ago with ExtraHop. And we're currently working on some of the cutting edge technologies with both organizations and other providers to give you this level of insight that you might require. I'm going to give you a fairly short demonstration. This is the Reveal X product, and it's showing you how we look within a cloud environment. This is our web interface. The entire product is accessed through a single pane of glass. This is looking currently at detection. This could be on a single deployment. It could be across multiple deployments. It doesn't matter how many systems, how many sites we're monitoring. We have this single pane of glass gives you visibility into everything that's happening. At a very high level, we're looking at the detections pane. You can see we're looking at the last 7 hours of activity. And the detections is where our machine learning takes what it's the numbers it's crunched in your environment and says, I've found something you need to see. This could be a performance issue. It could be a security issue. If we scroll down here, we can see, for example, due to all the processing that we've done, we've detected that data exfiltration is happening on a certain laptop. This detection pane will give you a summary of exactly what that issue is. We've assigned a risk score to it. And also we've integrated with a trouble ticket system. something like a ServiceNow system that will allow us to basically pass this event over to a third-party system for tracking. It's a new incident. It's been given a ticket number. It's been assigned by ServiceNow in this instance to Wendy to investigate, remediate. We can see that the problem seems to be some traffic has gone to somewhere that is flagged up as a suspicious IP on a threat intelligence feed. And here we have somebody sent 1.1 gigs of traffic to this IP address. Click on the red camera. We'll zoom in further and tell us why we should be concerned about this suspicious IP address. And this was informed to us by something like a STIX compliant threat intelligence feed that you might buy from a vendor, or use something like the Alien Vault OTX feed or the Anomaly Limo feed. And that basically says, you know, one of the top 100 suspicious IP addresses this week that we've seen running malware, exfiltrating data, etc. As soon as something flags up on that list, it alerts you to that. We can also drill down to the individual laptop. So we want to investigate this. We can drill down and this will zoom in straight away. Instead of looking at 7 hours, we're looking at a very specific time range. And instead of looking at everything on the network and all the detections, we're now looking at a single device, this accounting laptop, and everything that device has done. So we've got, in here we've got network traffic. You can also see some client activity for AAA, for CIFS, DNS, NFS, SSH. So we can see we've got detections flagged here. There was a ping scan detected. In that case, there was data exfiltration. If we want to understand what this device is talking to, we can actually click on the activity map. And again, we're gathering this based upon all the packets that are transmitted on the network and fed into the Xdrop device. So we recorded everything that's happening. In this case, we can see this accounting laptop is doing a lot. It doesn't look like anybody's standard laptop. It should be just talking to a couple of file shares, saving some spreadsheets. It's talking to a lot of devices. We've got devices with these flashing circles around them. Something has happened on that, and we need to investigate that. We can drill in on these. We can go and look at the various devices we've seen. We can also flag up alerts. So if something has triggered an alert, we click on that and it shows us, yeah, there's some devices in there that need to be investigated. So in the start to investigate this issue, instead of just looking at the overall point of view, we can look at details of things that might have happened. So we know a lot of data was being sent out via SSH to suspicious IP address. If somebody says to us, well, what could that be? You know, can we identify the kinds of traffic? Because we're protocol fluent, and we're using the CIFS protocol in this case, we can actually say, well, yes, around the time the detections were flagged, we saw these files are being accessed. And this goes down to the level of the individual share, the file name itself, and we can see all the details of exactly what's been going on, what that user has accessed, how many times it's read, the amount of traffic. So there's no detail, there's no lack of detail as to what that person might have taken. We also look at things like the server IP address, which server was this taken from, the methods in use. So the investigation that you want to conduct when you get a detection like this is very complete. It's very detailed. If required, we also have full details for each transaction. So we can say, click on this magnifying glass here, and that will show us exactly how the file was read. Client IP address, the name, etc., etc. If we want, we can say, well, show me everything that workstation did, and that will go off and show us all transactions. Let's remove another filter there. So we see things like DNS request, response, SSH ticks. So everything is recorded. There's no doubt as to whether something happened or not. The packet said it did. One of the things that we do when we're first installed is to count the devices in your environment, on-prem or in cloud, but also automatically classify everything that's there. So AAA, CIFS database, all these protocols. A application server might be a web server to its clients, but a database client to the database servers. Similarly, a database server will be a database server, but also a storage client. And they will, correspondingly, it'll fall into these individual buckets. So all traffic is available and visible for you to examine in detail. So that's a really quick overview of RevealX, the kind of detail you can go from seeing, showing from the very top level detections that you should be concerned about, down to the individual investigation steps of the records, individual users, individual workstations, and down to, if required, the packets themselves, if you need to actually show those, do the packet capture for whatever reason. Just going to switch back to the presentation and just talk about some things that we're doing in the Azure environment. I mentioned we monitor both on-prem and in-cloud activities. We have customers that do both. They monitor on-premise, identify applications that can be moved to cloud, look at the dependencies, then they actually, during cloud migration, baseline the existing performance for before and after comparison, and then start to do continuous monitoring of the newly migrated application. See if do they need to roll back, do they need to add more resources, do they need to right size, do they need to downsize, could they actually get away with less resources? So there's a lot we can do with an extra hop, both during the migration and afterwards, to understand what your workloads are. In terms of new things that we're doing, Microsoft have announced this virtual tap, and the virtual tap is this ability to say, as you spin up an instance in the Azure cloud, instruct the Microsoft cloud to actually send all traffic for that newly instantiated server to a device for analysis. We're one of the launch partners for this. There was 7 different launch partners, Flowmon, HCL, Electra, OSA. And this is only available over the US at the moment. It's still in developer preview. It'll be rolling out across the rest of the Azure availability zones in the next few months. And it allows us to, as we spin up devices, automatically add them to a monitored system, so we know exactly what's happening. We don't have to perform any extra steps. That device just becomes part of the monitored estate. And this is something that will be looked at closely by other cloud providers. We're starting to see other announcements be made by major cloud vendors where they have to go and basically catch up with Microsoft in respect of virtual network taps. Prior to this, typically you would have to install a piece of software on a Linux or a Windows server that would forward the traffic manually, and that was a manual step, or it had to be done something like through SCOM, where you would actually install a piece of software, tell it what agents, what device to talk to, and then remember to do that for each build that you spun up, otherwise things weren't going to happen. So it's a significant differentiator. Will be available this summer from Microsoft, shortly afterwards from other vendors. So this is RevealX. This is how we bring network traffic analysis to Microsoft Azure for as many servers as required in real time. It's fully integrated with the virtual network tap. It was developed in close partnership with Microsoft as a development partner. It was purpose-built for SecOps, and it's purpose-built for giving us the visibility that we require to have informed decisions taken about hybrid, cloud, and on-prem deployments. We integrate with Azure Security Center, Azure SQL Database, and Azure Storage. We understand those protocols. We can add more metrics to their dashboards. And it just gives us this unified threat visibility across the estate, no matter where or how often you deploy assets, either on-prem or in the cloud. And this really scales the human expertise. Like cloud security experts are few and far between. That can be hard to recruit and quite expensive. This gives us a lot more detail, a lot more information to understand what's happening in the cloud. It gives us visibility into shadow cloud, devices that people have spun up, either unwittingly or have just forgotten to take out, spin down. And it also gives us visibility into encrypted traffic. We support decryption of traffic up to TLS 1.3, so we can see both the encrypted traffic and the transactions within that as well. As long as it's your certificates that you're using, that you've issued them, you can supply that to the appliance, and the appliance will use that certificate and private key material to decrypt your traffic and can examine for any attacks within that encryption. Some of our lighthouse customers, it's been used by Nike for Nike.com, cruise lines, Caesars Entertainment, a lot of others we can't mention as well, so I won't go into that. So that's where we are at the moment. That's what we're doing, what our capabilities are with Azure Cloud. So things are changing significantly in terms of the technologies to allow us to spin up machines that are automatically included in the security or performance monitoring system with very little to no input required on your behalf. It just happens to take place, automatically categorized, discovered, and monitored.
Well, that's excellent, Peter. Thank you ever so much for your presentation and taking us through that. That's been very informative. We've picked up just a few questions during the session, which I've picked out. Others we'll answer independently. But the first one is, how many endpoints does RevealX support?
It will depend on where we're deploying. Our largest appliance is a 100 gig physical appliance that supports up to 100,000 endpoints. An endpoint being a sort of anything talking to that, so layer 2, layer 3, and that supports up to, I think, 16,000 critical assets. A critical asset is something that you really want to protect, something you need to monitor every single thing about, every protocol, every byte, every connection coming into it. So 16,000 for full analysis with our largest box, 100,000 in terms of complete endpoints talking to those devices.
Excellent. So highly scalable, as you've already mentioned. Thank you. Another one, do I have to choose between security and performance machine learning? You mentioned both in the session.
Yeah, before we did have two separate products. We had the sort of a traditional extra hop with our history of performance monitoring and the machine learning that applied to that. There was a separate product for security. It's now rolled into one. If you have the RevealX product, it's a tick box option to enable do we wish to record performance statistics as well. So it can cut across use cases for both teams, security and performance monitoring. So you could hardly see the joins in the past. It made no sense to have two separate products with two separate interfaces. So they've now been rolled into a single product that fulfills both purposes.
Excellent. Very much appreciate that, Peter. Thank you. Other questions we've answered directly. If you still opportunity for you to ask more questions, which we can feedback information, we'll leave the session open for a little while for that. But just to mention finally here, we would welcome your feedback on our session today. That will be available to you once we close the session. It'll be sent to you as a link in the email, along with an option to be able to get the recording. In there as well is information on how you can access the extra resources, including a detection document, which contains information around the type of anomalies that as an organization you should be looking at detecting today, and obviously how RevealX can help you do that. And just as a small incentive, there is a £10 Amazon gift voucher for the first 10 respondents to that feedback survey. As I say, we'll leave the session open for just a few more minutes so that you can put any other questions on there that you'd like to. And whilst we do that, we'll also just leave some extra contact information there if you'd like to get in touch with us with different questions, or if you'd like to have a one-to-one demonstration, which we can then focus very much more around your actual environment, then just drop us a message on any of these options here, and then we'll be able to respond to you. So just leaves me to say thank you very much all for joining, and we hope to see you again on our next session. So we'll leave the session open for a few more minutes, and then we'll close after that. Thanks once again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.